Welcome to Watches with Dennis, and today I'm reviewing the Glashütte Original PanoMaticLunar. This is reference 90-02-24-02-24. This watch is from my personal collection. It was purchased used, and I've owned it a week at this point. The PanoMaticLunar was introduced in 2003 to Glashütte Original's Pano line, which started around 2001. The last notable update in design was in 2015, but this model predates that modification. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take some measurements. Watch diameter, I get 39 millimeters. Lug to lug, I get 46.1 millimeters. Watch thickness, I get 11.6 millimeters. And the lug width I get at 19 millimeters. This watch offers 30 meters of water resistance. This reference features a sunburst blue dial with silver metallic tracks for the hours and minutes. And you can also see the same for the small seconds. And there's similar silver framing around the moon phase and around the date complication. This dial configuration is asymmetrical, with the hours and minutes shifted over towards the traditional 9 o'clock position of the watch dial, and features applied hour indices. The small seconds is likewise shifted to be directly below the hours and minutes. And you can see its hand is centered where the 6 o'clock hour position would be on the hours and minutes subdial. The hands are all a polished silver color. The same silver look is in place for the moon phase, both for the moon and for the stars within it. The moon phase is situated towards the traditional 1 o'clock position of the dial, and towards the 4 o'clock position of the dial is the date complication, which is a big date feature. So the way this works is each of these 2 digits is displayed on its own date wheel. And interestingly, the date wheels are on the same plane, so they're quite level with each other. And I note that because the other famous German watch brand that likes to do the big date, the Langenzone, they do not keep the 2 date wheel discs at the same level, so you have this interesting, or I think it's a slightly unattractive stepped look that is avoided by Glashütte Original. While the modern versions of the PanoMaticLunar do feature some lume, this watch doesn't have any and leans into its dress watch aesthetic, and since there's no lume, I won't be providing a lume shot. The watch case itself is stainless steel, and the dial is protected by a sapphire crystal. The case itself is brushed, though there are some polished elements you can see involving the bezel as well as the crown with, we can get it focused here, the WwD logo of the watch. The crown is in the traditional 3 o'clock position, but there's also a small pusher up towards the 1 o'clock position of the case, and that is to adjust the moon phase. The crown itself has 3 positions. We're currently in position 0, and this is where the watch can be wound. In position 1 is when you can do the quick set date. And in position 2, the watch does hack, so you can see the seconds hand has stopped moving, and this is where we can set the time. In order to adjust the moon phase via the pusher, you need to use a small tool such as a toothpick, and you just push in, and you can see the moon is moving. And you can look up online a lunar calendar to know how to adjust it. The manual of the watch does explain how to start and put it into position. It's not a fast process, but it is a functional process. The PanoMaticLunar line is typically associated with a strap, but this one actually came on a 7-link steel bracelet. The bracelet relies on a double deployant clasp, which fixes as such. You can see the WwD logo here as well. I have found that this bracelet is very secure with this double deployant. In fact, it's almost hard for me to open. It snaps down so snugly. The clasp itself also curves so that it hugs the wrist more. Flipping the watch over, you can see another sapphire crystal revealing the movement, which is the caliber 90-02. This is an in-house movement that features a 3/4 plate with striped finishing. Incidentally, the 3/4 plate is something you'll often see on German designed and created watches. It has an off-center skeletonized rotor with striped finishing as well. Also has the brand's WwD logo on it, and the oscillation weight, as you can see, is made out of 21 karat gold. The movement features a duplex swan neck, and the balance bridge, if I can get in close enough for you, is hand engraved. As the rotor indicates, this is an automatic watch. It has 47 joules. It offers approximately 42 hours of power reserve and beats at 4 Hz. Putting this watch on my time grapher, I got an average gain across all 6 positions of 4.8 seconds. The range itself on the 6 readings was as low as 0 seconds per day up to plus 10 seconds per day. And here's a look at the watch on my 6.75-inch wrist. And here's some footage of the watch in some natural lighting so you can get another look at how the dial plays with the light. So, what are my overall thoughts on this watch? I'd say some notable positives are it's got a very unique asymmetrical look, it has a very comfortable bracelet, and it has a quite easy to read date. And the negatives, I would say, is it's a bit hard to set the moon phase. I really wish that it had at least 50 meters of water resistance, and the smaller rotor that this watch runs with and the low power reserve on the movement means I end up having to wind this watch more than most of the other watches in my collection. As noted at the start of this video, this reference is actually from a prior PanoMaticLunar line. The new models feature the use of lume and are slightly larger watches. But regardless of the version, this model offers a very unique dress watch look that really only begs comparison to A. Lange & Söhne's Lange 1 line, though Glashütte Original has gone with a different asymmetrical configuration than its more expensive competitor. In terms of pricing, the retail price for current PanoMaticLunars runs for the steel variants somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 US. You can tend to find them notably less used, and depending if you're going to go back to a prior reference or not, it's really tough to give you a range, but I would say expect to pay somewhere on the order of $6,000 around for a used model, all the way up to maybe $8,500 or so for something perhaps gray market or only lightly used. This is my first moon phase watch, and I find it somewhat cumbersome to set given the need for a tool like a toothpick to activate the button. I've had other watches that rely on that before, so it's not a big deal. It's not something you should need to set all the time, but just be aware it does require something to actually be able to toggle that. Also, while I know this is a dress watch, the 30 meters of water resistance, while acceptable, I really would prefer, and this is true for any watch, that it would have at least been 50 meters. But my biggest negative has actually been the automatic winding. Twice during this week of wear, when I pulled the watch off my desk to wear it, I actually saw that it had stopped. And the second time that happened, I wondered if perhaps something was wrong with the rotor and that I might need to send it in for service. So I took the watch and I just shook it in my hand, and that actually did put a wind in it. So what I think is actually the case here is this, obviously the watch isn't getting enough of a wind while I was wearing it. Some of that is I did not wear the watch all day every day, so that contributed. Another factor I think may be in play is that this watch does not use a full-sized rotor all the way around the diameter of the watch, but rather it uses a smaller rotor. So that could also affect the number of winds that's necessary, number of turns that's necessary to put a wind in it. In addition, this movement happens to rely on a unidirectional rotor, so it only winds when it spins in one particular direction. Also, as I noted when talking about the caliber 90-02, it has a relatively low power reserve. It's only about 42 hours. So combining all of those factors together, it's just something where this is a watch where you may struggle to put enough wind in it unless you're actually moving it around quite a bit. And just sitting at the desk all day might not be enough for that. Or if you're like me and you might take it off early before your workday is done, just bear all that in mind. Since this doesn't have a screw down crown, it's very, very easy to put a hand wind into the watch. But it's just something that I don't have to worry about with any of my other automatic watches. If I'm taking them off too early, They have such long power reserves that I end up eventually automatically putting in enough wind over time. So just something to note here with the PanoMaticLunar line. But overall, I think the PanoMaticLunar is a good dress watch for someone to look into if you really like asymmetrical dial layouts, if you're interested in a moon phase complication, if you really want something that offers a big date, and if you would like some hand finished elements to look at, as we noted regarding this watch's movement. The brand is a bit off the beaten path, even though it is controlled by the Swatch Group. So this is also a watch that I would say is worth looking into if you want something that's a quality luxury watch and also something that not everybody else will be wearing. Thank you everyone for watching this review video. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like as it helps the channel out. Subscribe if you'd like to be automatically notified when I release new videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day.